Not a big deal. Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
Already? Okay. All right, welcome back everyone. So, sort of continuing the idea that I'm hoping that you all will use this week to attempt the practices of inquiry and surrender during your ordinary life and report back with any experiences, doubts, positive experiences, anything at all, questions, or anything that's occurred to you anyway over the course of the last few days, generally speaking. So I'll just open the floor real quick and ask if anyone has any experiences to report or questions of any kind, generally speaking, on the topics we've covered.
So this morning during meditation, actually before the meditation you made a statement that I needed to churn a bit, like to contemplate on it. You said that sometimes the thoughts have a message.
Yes.
But when we are practicing the surrender technique, so we are trying to be indifferent to it. That was my understanding.
Sure.
Be indifferent to it.
Yes.
But at the same time, how can we grab the message and move on?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So actually, the way I put it, which is, not exactly so different from what you said, but it's more like resistance has a message. So resistance to the practice has a message. So you're right that there's several subtleties here, really. So if you're finding your practice is running into a barrier, especially a motivational barrier, a fear barrier, a boredom barrier, these kinds of barriers, right? The temptation is to just, quote unquote, override it by force of will or something like that, or, kind of scold yourself into doing it or something like that. And what I would suggest is that might work if it's something very trivial, but if it's something deeper, that the resistance has some kind of message that it wants to deliver to you. And you would be well advised to try to open that up, see what your feelings are, listen to that voice within, and see if you can give it what it needs, because maybe it needs something, perhaps. It needs more information, or it needs some other need is not being met. A number of possibilities are there. So, that idea of unpacking the resistance can be as simple as, just trying to feel your emotions more clearly, asking yourself what it's all about, maybe journaling or something like that. Or it could be as complex as, going into a longer term therapy or something like that. Now, what I want to say is, technically speaking, okay, and this is important, surrender and inquiry are not in any way preventing the mind from engaging in this process. Because surrender and inquiry are not in opposition to any particular activities of the body or the mind. All possible activities of the body and mind can go on, while inquiry and surrender go on. Now the difference is, when you do inquiry or surrender, you cannot insist that those particular activities go on, but they can go on by themselves.
Allow them to go on.
Well, yes, when you do surrender, they're perfectly capable of going on, basically.
Just a quick follow-up on that. So, to give an example, suppose a thought comes to my mind that, okay, my stomach is reporting that it is feeling hunger.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's not happening right now.
Yes,
but
yes.
Then, if I choose to be indifferent to it and not act on it,
yes,
then perhaps I'm not listening to that message.
Well, no, so right, so yeah, and so the second piece of what I'm going to say in a second, but technically speaking, basically surrender and self-inquiry are both based on the viewpoint that you are not the doer. When we say you're not the doer, that also means you're not the thinker, you're not the feeler, nor are you the person who is responding to these messages and analyzing them. The entire thought process, including introspection, reflection, analysis, all of it can happen without you. All of it does happen without you, in fact. All the time, it only happens without you. We just pretend it's us that's doing it. But just like everything else happens without you, so too this. So that message of, what to do about my hunger, you can be in surrender. And when you say I'm indifferent, you're assuming that this position of indifference prevents actions, including thinking, from going on. It does not. The whole idea that it does is, of course, part of the illusion that we're trying to dispel. So the reality is, when you are surrendering, though you are being indifferent, just as in the same way that when you are surrendering or you're inquiring, your body and the mind will take certain actions. Although what actions they may take, we cannot say in advance, but they will take certain actions for sure. Even sitting down and doing nothing is a certain action. In the same way that it does those physical actions, it will also do those mental actions. Now, if it's the case that the resistance is preventing, is acting as a serious barrier to doing the practice in the first place, so that you don't feel like doing the practice, you don't do the practice, right? Then you may need to step back for a second and, pretend you are the doer, so to say, right? That's really what it is. You're pretending you're the doer. And then from that stance, actively take a role in troubleshooting. But let's be clear that this is still, technically speaking, totally pretend game. You're pretending. That's fine. You need to, actually. So when there's serious resistance present themselves, you step back from the practice because you have no choice, because it doesn't let you practice. You step back from the practice and you troubleshoot. But actually speaking, the process of listening to yourself, carefully feeling your emotions, addressing your needs, all of these things in a healthy way, all of it can happen entirely while you are in surrender or inquiry.
Yes.
That makes sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, good question. Yeah. Huh?
So in the process of inquiry and surrender, the inquiry is not possible without surrender.
Well, that's an interesting way of putting it. That's kind of true, actually, in a way. Surrender and inquiry are sides of a coin. The way that I've been defining surrender over the last couple of days and inquiry is they are slightly different flavored activities. They're very linked and related. But in inquiry, you are actively seeking the I sense, and in surrender, you are actively ignoring everything, basically. And so you're right, actually, that inquiry does entail surrender, actually, because when you look for I, and you alight upon various objects that come into your experience that are then realized to be objects of your experience and therefore not I, you then ignore those objects and you keep going looking for I. So what you're doing is, what are you doing? You're ignoring. And surrender is about ignoring. So, in a way, absolutely, inquiry does entail surrender.
And the reason I asked the follow-up to Sriram's question, when we, even to prepare for the inquiry, when all these different thoughts like hunger and whatever the flood of the thoughts comes, that can be like an obstacle for surrender. In the sense that unless we overcome those things, we cannot surrender actually. The surrender can be a process to overcome these other obstacles. That's like a step, correct? Even though it is an improvised portion, like you said, okay, let the thoughts come, I will let them follow in process. In that process, that's the way the surrender completes, correct? Then we can see exactly what we want to inquire, even though we have objectively have something for inquiry, but that inquiry cannot be these can be impediments, all these other things without surrender. That's what my, at least that's what I am feeling, when I sit there for 5-6 hours continuously, all these thoughts will come, correct? In that process, sometimes my objective of surrender is this becomes impediments for my surrender. Without completely surrendering to whatever it is, okay, I cannot even process what exactly I want to do the inquiry. That's what my experience.
Well, again, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by surrender, but what I'm talking about when I say surrender, what I mean is a particular practice where we are allowing the thoughts to be,
okay,
but we are simply not using our willpower on them, and we are not getting our attention lost in them. So technically speaking, any number of thoughts can come up, including thoughts of needs and emotions and all kinds of stuff. And you can surrender. You can surrender while those thoughts come up. You might decide that it's too difficult to do that because you're taken by these violent emotions, and you might decide, I need to address those emotions in other ways before coming to surrender. You might decide that if it's too difficult for you to directly surrender. But technically speaking, surrender is perfectly possible with any number of thoughts. And inquiry is also possible with any number of thoughts, because all these thoughts arise. I'm hungry. Well, to whom is that thought occurring? Technically speaking, you can say it's true. To whom is that thought occurring? So you can inquire. And, by the way, your inquiry is not in contradiction to eating something. You might inquire, who's having this thought of hunger? Meanwhile, your body and mind might go eat something. They might.
I mean, what I mean to say is that while doing these things, that awareness has to be there, correct? Like, okay, my thoughts are coming, it's fine, still I can surrender, still I can inquire.
Yeah, you have to realize that the thoughts are happening on a kind of screen, right? Your job is to recognize the screen on which they're happening, in some sense. And so whatever those thoughts may be, of course, some thoughts are harder to, stay awake in, basically. They're more violent. But technically speaking, all the thoughts are like on a TV screen, and a TV screen is equally a TV screen if it's showing a volcano or if it's showing, a blue, clear blue sunny day. It's still, they're both on the screen, technically speaking. Yeah, but it's true. We do want it's easier to do the practice with a quieter mind, and you can establish a quieter mind using many means, and that may include, for example, eating and sleeping correctly, and being moral and various other things. So yeah, those things are there.
I have a question. So surrender alone is enough to see yourself. I mean, you
Yes.
don't need like surrender. I see lots of distractions. You avoid. You don't focus on those thoughts, and then you go on like that, or like that helps you. But at the end, even though like when you're at a very very peaceful stage and you align yourself with one and the same with the self, and then you say we further inquire who I am from that stage of mind, right? So likewise surrender also, like surrender is you reach a stage after that again you inquire, or you don't, that lead you to
Surrender can lead you to the self all by itself. You don't technically need inquiry at all. You just keep surrendering. You just keep surrendering, because again, surrender just means you keep discerning that whatever's happening is an experience, and you don't allow your attention to linger there. And when you do not when you revoke your attention from an experience, there's only one place it can go. Where is that? Can you guess? When you take your attention away from the object of experience, where can the attention go? Towards the subject, exactly. Where else? Towards I, right? So you take your attention away from the not I, it goes towards the I automatically, whether you think of it that way or not. In inquiry, you're deliberately asking, who am I? Where am I? In surrender, you're not deliberately asking that question, but you keep moving your attention away from what you're experiencing. So where else is it going back to except you? It's going in the direction of you. So even when you come to a very peaceful state in surrender, you can ask, if you want at that point, okay, who's experiencing this peace? That's great. Or you can simply recognize this peace is also an experience and ignore it.
And like for self-inquiry, the surrender is helpful to keep your thought away and focus on that. Likewise, but surrender is independent of self-inquiry.
Yeah, they're independent. They're independent of each other. You can mix them absolutely, because surrender has a slightly different flavor. It's a bit more, can be more relaxing, or can be sweeter in certain ways. And inquiry is more curiosity-driven. Like, who am I? What am I? What is this? What is this mystery? I want to solve the mystery. Inquiry is driven by that. But inquiry, can become tiring because you run into a wall and you have to keep hitting your head against this wall again and again and again. And eventually you're like, I'm exhausted. And then at that moment you can surrender. And in surrender, eventually, it can lead you again, like, you might feel like, now I'm curious again, and then you come back to inquiry. You can if you want to, but you can just stay with surrender, or you can just stay with inquiry. Each one is completely independent, fully complete in itself. You can go all the way with each, either one,
Can I ask?
You have a question?
Yeah.
Sure.
I hear some feedback.
Dana.
Is there feedback now? I know there's always seems to be a little feedback at the beginning. No, she's hearing some echo or something. She's saying there might be somebody else on the Zoom call who has their it's everyone on the Zoom call
Everyone
muted.
else on the Zoom call mute.
Yeah. Some people, let me check.
It's better now. I don't hear it now.
Is it better now? Oh, she doesn't hear it anymore. Okay,
Yeah, okay,
perfect.
fine.
That's great.
Everybody's muted actually,
Okay, perfect.
excepting Dana.
I have a question on human needs. And earlier you mentioned, feel your emotions, take care of your needs. Interestingly, human needs have always been really confusing to me. If I'm isolated, practicing is okay. Actually, the first day when we got together, the 10 minutes of practicing just seemed way too long, and the today seemed like, oh, I could keep going, keep going. But until I started talking with my friend, who happens to be a psychologist, I have a couple of psychologist friends, and I haven't really got much into psychotherapies because their approach is all about meeting human needs.
Yes.
But I'm not sure if that is a trap or a detour, or that is, the path to liberation. In other words, if it's, sometimes needs feel like temptations to me. Growing up, my survival needs were largely neglected.
Oh.
So when I became an adult, I became very attracted to teachings like, I'm whole, complete, perfect, I have no needs, I need nothing. I became very attracted to those teachings, so I started ignoring my human needs. But then my friend, just every time I talk to a psychologist, they seem like, oh, this is your approach. You gotta, the pyramid thing, right? You gotta start from meeting your physiological, biological needs, and then, mental, spiritual.
Yeah. I mean, I think the reality is, most people do actually need to have their substantial physical, mental, and emotional needs met. Most people need to have them met to a decent extent before they're going to be able to make significant progress on the practice. If people have left some of those stunted and neglected, there may be certain exceptions, and it's not like every need has to be met fully, but otherwise you're probably going to run into some kind of barrier, the barrier to the practice base. You won't be able to practice fully. And so, I do think that this is, it's a danger, people thinking that, I'm the self, I'm perfect, I'm complete, and therefore I do not need to attend to my human needs at all. Because the reality is when you try to do the practice and you have not attended to your human needs, you will find it very difficult to do at a certain point. And so, it might technically be possible for certain people, but it's not necessarily the recommended way. So I do think that it's important to address those needs 100%. And it's not a temptation, it's not bad. In fact, it's probably a neglected aspect of the spiritual search, in fact. People want to, understandably, run away from a lot of their emotional stuff into the spiritual. And the spiritual is, to be fair, it is a balm for those things. It is a balm for those things. But, it may not be, it's at a certain level. And, if the levels below that have not been dealt with sufficiently, then you won't be able to do the spiritual thing completely. So, and they're complementary anyway, is the way I see it. Like, doing spiritual practice is complementary with doing things that are also supportive of your emotional and mental and physical health. So, I would view a psychologist or something like that in a way as like, it's like a personal trainer at the gym or something like that, Is it required for spiritual practice? No. But having a healthy body, does it aid the spiritual practice? Yes. Is it possible for the physical stuff to become an obsession that interferes? Yes, it can. If it becomes about vanity, if it becomes about, excess, yes, it can be a problem. But basically having a healthy physical body is essentially supportive of the practice. Like, in the same way that eating right and sleeping right and, having good relationships and, having good general emotional maturity and all of those things, all of those are supportive of the practice. They basically, what do? They basically make the mind calmer, essentially. And a calmer mind is easier makes it easier to reflect. It makes it easier to focus. More energy is available for focusing. So, you can use that energy to then, for the practice.
Can I give you an example? I just had an example yesterday. I saw a chiropractor, and I felt the adjustment that he did was just perfect. And actually, I was free of anxiety for the rest of the day, and which is rare for me. So I told my friend, then I told my friend about this, and I said, but I can't depend on that. I can't rely on that because I was already like, whoa, I wanted to have more of those, perfect chiropractic adjustments, but I was at the same time, I was afraid of being hooked, being addicted, to put it, that's a heavy word. But she said, why not? You have it. Use it. I use everything. I get hugs from one of my coworkers is the best hugger in the whole world. Whenever I need a hug, I go to her. I go to chiropractors. I get massages. Whatever you do, to meet that need.
Yeah. Well, so, I think the answer is it's a very individual question. If you feel that this is in fact leading your mind to greater peace, you have to evaluate. You're right. Certain things might seem like they're peaceful, but could be addiction. There could be self-deceit involved. There's no one-size-fits-all answer to that question. You're just going to have to see for yourself. But in principle, there's nothing wrong with it. In principle, eating good food, taking care of your body, these are not anti-spiritual practices. They are spiritually supportive, actually. So though there is a stereotype of someone abusing their body, it's said in the Gita, those who abuse their bodies, that's anti-spiritual, Krishna says, this is not the way. So, if you're doing something which is supportive of the health of your body, you can rest assured that's fine. It's actually going to help the spiritual search. But you're right, it could go to extremes. You have to watch carefully and see, is it in fact promoting your overall physical and mental well-being?
Anything demotivating.
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
Sure.
So, this is about
Vidya.
the surrender practice this morning, the
Yes.
meditation. And so today when my experience with the surrender practice was, I didn't want to put any effort, even, trying to pay attention to my thoughts and letting go of the thoughts. So I just wanted it to be, and I was tired of putting that effort. I wanted it to be, effortless. So I just, I was just being, and letting it. And then, things are a little, crazy at work, and, stuff, things come up, and so I try to use that throughout the day today because, things were getting triggered, anxiety and everything was getting triggered. I was aware of it, and I was trying to use the surrender practice. And it was kind of, so when does it become effortless? It was a lot of effort. It felt a little, I could sense, the emotional things, changes in me at the same time, and intellectually I'm trying to practice surrender. So, but at the same time I'm trying to see, if I can make this effortless and, just being like allowing things to just that I'm not the doer, let things happen. It was a struggle. So do you have any?
It is a struggle.
Throughout the day, I paid attention to it. And
Good.
I was attempting to practice.
That's good.
It, so
That's great. That's great. It is going to be a struggle, and you should be putting effort into it. And the idea that just being is going to be effortless in the beginning is wrong, because if you simply let go and you do not put effort or concentration in, what will happen is you will fall exactly into the habits you normally have. So it requires a great deal of effort at the beginning for most people to sustain the concentration to break their habits of engaging in things, basically. What we're trying to do in surrender is not get drawn in by all the hooks, right? To view ourselves as completely not involved in any of the thoughts or any of the situations that are going on, and to relax our willpower, right? To keep revoking our attention and relaxing our willpower. And this is something that for most people, for quite a long time, will require a great deal of effort. There's no doubt about it, because You're at war with your attachments and your usual identity as a person. So, you have to unwind those things. And so, effortlessness will come later. Once you put in a lot of effort, then effortlessness will come. Just like really anything else in a way, right? Like you can't expect to play the violin or to, be a surgeon or anything without effort. And this is no different in a way. Because what we're doing is we are unwinding certain very deeply ingrained habits. And that requires effort, unfortunately.
And I found that, I don't know, I didn't make an effort to go towards self-inquiry. I mean, a couple of times I did ask myself, to whom it's happening, but somehow what I allowed myself, I mean, the emphasis seemed to be, like if I looked at myself as a third person, so this third person wanted to put more effort on surrender. For
That's
some
fine.
reason, and practice
That's
surrender.
fine.
So
That's fine.
eventually what I also ended up doing is 15 minutes, I just did a little journal sprint. That kind of also, helped. I mean, so because intellectually I was aware of all these things that were going on, I was, making a lot of effort to practice, letting go.
That's great.
And then when the effort became a little too much, then I said, let me just go throw it out on a piece of paper.
That's great. So. That's great. Exactly. So these kinds of things, like doing a journal when this practice becomes too intense, too difficult, is a great idea. And there are many, many things like that, which each person will have to figure out for themselves. Like the specific little variants they'll have to do to make it work for them. So it's great. Listen to your intuition. Follow that. That's great. That's exactly how it is. So as you do this again and again and again and again, you're going to keep discovering, first of all, the practice itself will become subtler. You'll understand what it is better. And secondly, you'll understand how to navigate these resistances and your moments of being tired and the situations that provoke you and make it more difficult. You'll learn to anticipate them. A lot of things will become clear in the process.
Okay.
And it also, the question one, I forget his name, who asked during the meditation this morning about how is it easier to practice when, you're going through some kind of, suffering?
Right. Well, I think the answer is, I think for many people it is. I don't think there's an absolute rule, but, for many people it is because you have an immediate motivation to exit the suffering.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if it is self-imposed, right? I mean, it is self-imposed.
Well,
so,
sure. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Raj, you had a question?
Yeah, no, I was just going to share that when I was, again, I was practicing surrendering while driving. And it occurred to me that when I'm doing something that doesn't require my conscious mind to engage so much, because driving has become a sort of a subconscious activity, it's much easier to do surrender. And I was thinking if I was learning driving, perhaps it would be harder for me to do surrender, though in principle that might still work.
Yes.
But that led me to think that maybe at least surrender could be practiced in all activities where I don't need to, where I don't need to consciously think, maybe start off that way and then expand it into other areas where I think I require more trust.
Yeah, that's probably right. I think that's exactly right. You're right. Areas where you're learning, it's closer to, it's closer to your sense of identity as the intellect, basically, right? I'm the learner. I have to put attention, otherwise learning won't happen, right? That sense is an identification with that, and it's very central. So it is much harder to give that up and have trust that it can happen even regardless. Absolutely, start where you can, 100%.
So I wanted to ask you. So let's say I was learning driving.
Yeah.
And then I have all the nervousness associated with learning driving and keeping it. All that could still happen while I'm in surrender.
It can happen.
The experience would be.
I
find it hard to internalize that experience, but I guess that's...
Well, it's certainly possible, but again, right? Again and again, you have to recognize that if you're surrendering, you can't insist that to happen.
Yeah, I cannot insist it.
Yes, it's completely compatible with it. So, if the forces that run the universe want you to learn driving in that moment, then despite your surrender, you shall learn driving.
So it's universe's decision.
It's the universe's decision. It's God's decision. You can put it that way. That's the thing. It's already God's decision for everything, right? Even just think about, from a simple standpoint, right? Are you choosing the next thought that comes into your head?
No.
It's so obvious the answer is no, right? Never. So and these thoughts, we take ownership of them, basically, right? It's like you're like, oh yeah, I thought that. but you didn't. It just came to you, right? The whole string of thoughts is just coming to you one after the other. So it's like you're in a skyscraper and you're on the 30th floor of a 100-story skyscraper and you're looking out your window and a brick falls past your window and, you say, that's my brick, but you don't know where it came from and you don't know where it's going. It passes by the window of your conscious experience for 0.1 seconds, and then it's gone.
Can I
Yeah.
ask, not a devil's advocate, but
Sure.
I do have an idea of what kind of thoughts are going to enter the mind, because when I feel great, like after a session of yoga practice, I know that I have access to high quality thoughts, like creative thought, intuition and so forth. But when I'm exhausted, I don't get those thoughts.
Sure.
So we are attuned to some quality of thoughts. So there seems to be some, we are the master of what we are thinking. It seems like that.
Well, even that thought that I'm in a high quality state of thought is a thought that's given to you, right?
We are
Right. Your decision,
it's like tuning the radio dial.
your decision at every moment, your whole set of decisions from birth onwards have been given, right? So, for example, let's suppose you're interested in yoga, right? That inclination came from who knows where. Maybe your karma, maybe God, maybe your genetics, maybe your upbringing, call it what you will, right? And then your decision to practice yoga, let's say, for example, is all, again, controlled by the same forces, right? And then your idea that, this benefits me in this particular way is also a thought given to you by the same forces. And then now your sense that, I'm in this high quality state is also controlled by those same forces. And we know very well, by the way, anyway, that we could be wrong about that, right? We might think ourselves in a particular state, we're not. We might predict certain things, they may not happen. If we think that we are correct about our own predictions, that itself is also a thought that's given to us by those same things. Oh yeah, I was right. Yeah, I was right. No, who's giving us that thought, right?
Then
we're evaluating ourselves, right?
So
why are some people more, we label them as genius?
Sure.
They have access to thoughts that some of us don't.
No, they might. But all I'm saying is there might be.
But they don't have a role in that.
That's right.
Those
Exactly.
thoughts they got either.
It's like some kind of vein of like a vein of some brilliant mineral or something like that in the rock. Okay, that's genius. Like it's unusual, it's beautiful, but it's not like this portion of the rock made it happen. It's like the whole rock as a whole, the earth as a whole, maybe you could say the universe as a whole conspired for that particular thing to happen in that particular way. So what happens is we have this narrative in our head, and then the content of the narrative is, I am the thinker, I make the thoughts happen, I make the actions happen. That's the content of the text. It's like we're reading the text that's saying that, actually. But, the text is coming from somewhere else.
So, Akilesh, the only problem in this thing, again, I totally feel it is this way. But then, the famous debate of free will.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
And then in order to deal with this free will, even neuroscience is saying what you just said. Neuroscience is saying, you just take machines firing away.
Yeah.
And so then they're saying, hey, there's no free will really, so criminals, you shouldn't be hardened on criminals and kind of thing. And yet when you go to the spiritual part, you say, no, if you bring the soul angle in, then you can say, the soul can control the mind can control the actions, and hence there is some agency through the soul, it appears. Even if you look at Bhagavad Gita, they say, hey, self is higher than the mind and mind is higher than the senses, right?
Sure.
So there's implication that there's a way to get out of this free will argument by bringing the soul in, which without the realms of that you cannot, because there seems to be no free will. So how do you reconcile with that?
So there's
paradox.
a couple of aspects to it. So one is, at one level we have to say, look, okay, yes, you can say that there is free will, but to whom does the free will belong is the question, right? So if you say it's to the soul or to the self or to Brahman or to God, yes, God, you could say, has free will if you want, which I'm happy to say. So, God has free will, but the individual person is not God. That we have to be very clear about. So if we want to say, yes, it's not all determined by causes, right? Causes do not simply create effects in some kind of mechanical way, right? But there's some creative element to it. You cannot predict what's going to happen just from what's gone before, but something creative is added every moment. And that comes from some intelligence, some higher power. That higher power is not your individual self. That higher power is the self with a capital S. So, the individual at the individual level has no free will in that situation. And we know this, by the way, confirmed, for example, by the Gita. Okay, speaking of the Gita, right? Because the Gita says very clearly, right, in a highly ironic passage, right? Because Gita has spent 18 chapters where Krishna is trying to persuade Arjuna that he should fight, blah, 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 for all these reasons. Then at the end he says, okay, I've told you all this, now you decide. But then he says, but you know what, I'll just tell you, if you think that you're going to decide other than to fight, you're wrong. You're wrong. That's not what's going to happen. You shall fight whether you like it or not. And in fact, you're no more than a piece on a machine that is whirled around by me. So, so what was the whole Gita then? It was just a kabuki, like a drama, there's no actual will, there's no actual choice. Arjuna was destined to fight from the very beginning, so it's funny, and, but, at the deepest level, you could say, okay, free will versus determinism, really the truth, the real deepest truth of the matter is, they're both concepts, and all concepts rest on the false idea that there's an individual self. And so technically, if you dissolve that concept, then this concept also dissolves. Yeah. So you can technically say, oh, neither free will nor determinism, neither is exactly true. That's the closest statement. But honestly, for the seeker, the best position to take is, there's no free will except the free will to do the practice.
Right.
Which is, which is highly convenient, I know, but that's the way it is.
So is that the same as agency?
Yeah.
Involving free will, because I know Swamiji talks about agency, right?
Swami Bodhananda, yeah. We can regard it, this is getting into the philosophical weeds, right? There are people what are called, for example, like compatibilists, right? This is totally irrelevant, honestly, but we'll just indulge it for 1 second. So, there's, technically speaking, even if you don't believe in free will as the ability to choose not to have done something that you did, even if you believe that, you can still believe that there is some kind of free will because your thoughts and your actions have a certain kind of logical connection to them, right? So some people have said, when you act in a reasoned way, by logically and morally thinking your actions out, and if your actions come from that, then you're acting freely, even if you couldn't have done otherwise. So, that could be an art, that could be a way of talking about agency. I don't know if that's helpful, but anyway, it's sort of, the truth is, it's sort of irrelevant. It's a philosophical issue. See, from the Ramana standpoint, ultimately, we're trying to move to a place where the only agency we need is to transcend notions of agency. That's what the practices are for, So you can dispense with all this burden of doing things, We're trying to get out of that.
Or is it that we're trying to exhaust our sanchita karmas?
Well, that's another interesting point. So on this point, I'll read a verse. I'll read it out of order because it's relevant to what you just asked. So, I'll make a couple of comments on it. So this is, again, the Ulladanarpada Anubandham, appendix to Ramana's 40 verses. And he says, somewhere here, let's see if I can find this. Oh, yes, okay. So, yes, okay. So, verse 33 says, the statement that the jnani retains prarabdha while free from sanchita and agami is only a formal answer to the questions of the ignorant, Ramana says. Of several wives, none escapes widowhood when the husband dies. Even so, when the doer goes, all three karmas vanish. So, this is coming to the, there's a kind of older traditional Advaita idea, right, that, I'm not going to be an expert on this, honestly, but essentially, right, that there's certain karma that has to play out in this life, and there are certain accumulated karmas and those karmas are what are destroyed by moksha. And, but still, despite that, the jnani must live through whatever remaining karma is in this lifetime, essentially. This is misunderstanding. The truth is misunderstanding the nature of things, because the reality is that jnana is not merely the destruction of something that actually already exists. Jnana is the recognition that it never existed in the first place. So, yes. So, jnana, or knowledge of the self, is not really the destruction of some fixed quantity of stuff like karma that already really existed. It's recognizing that that never existed in the first place. The whole thing. The whole structure of karma, all karma didn't exist in the way that it seems to. So, this is the problem with thinking like, okay, you really have to exhaust all your karmas before enlightenment happens or something like that. Because if you had to exhaust them as if they were real, it would take you forever.
Plus you're accumulating. Your actions you're doing, you're also accumulating. So it's like a never-ending.
It is continuous.
Exactly.
Never-ending stream of.
There's what's happening is you're getting a different perspective whereby you see it's just a 2D picture. It's not. It doesn't exist actually. Yeah, a little more hot water, please.
Yeah.
It's okay. Thank you so much.
Can I share my experience?
Sure.
Just right now. I've had this a few times, not a whole lot of times. It's like just listening becomes kind of brutal because every word is a concept for me.
Yeah.
And I seem like before just listening, words is strung together. It's a sentence, and then there's a meaning I give to it. It just makes sense and flows. But lately, I've been having an experience like I can't string the words together anymore. Every single word is like a concept, so just almost like seems like an impairment of listening, but I know I can comprehend. It's just I can't stand a concept anymore.
That's okay.
An example. I think somebody else talked about it the other day. Today I had to make a decision by noon, and I was doing surrendering. I was surrender. I'm not going to do anything. Surrender. And anxiety got higher and higher. And finally, just like that thought came to me, what would love do? Or some people said, what would Jesus do, right? And then it just occurred to me, love is a concept.
Yes.
Everybody has a different meaning of love, so it's almost like meaningless to even ask that question.
Yes.
Everybody has a different idea of Jesus,
Yes.
right? That would be meaningless to even ask that question. So as I was listening to you, just this entire time, I just feel like I'm just, every single word is up to my interpretation, and it's almost like, what's the point?
So I encourage you.
That makes any sense.
Of course it makes sense. No, that's fine. Look, I encourage you, and in fact, I encourage everyone here. It's something I said last year as well. Though I'm going to set aside time, and maybe right now, in fact, we can do a little 10-minute practice. But I would encourage everyone here, if they want, to do the practice the entire time I'm talking. What I say is much less important than doing the practice. Is the truth.
Right.
Everything I say is in fact just geared to get you to do the practice. That's the whole point of the talking, really. And maybe a little bit of pointing, but mainly that. So it's not that important that you grasp the concepts. If you're aligned to the practice, do the practice, do the practice, do the practice.
Yep.
That's very helpful.
So,
Thank you.
and on that note, why don't we start? So let's do a little self-inquiry, 10 minutes. So again, I'm going to give the instructions for, just because it's always helpful to keep repeating these instructions, right? So self-inquiry is, again, really very simple. In every experience of anything, every moment, right, there's really a hidden, well, not so hidden, but just unattended to dimension of the experience, namely that you're there watching it. And so when you experience anything, right, including my voice, for example, or whatever you're thinking about or feeling, whatever it is, we don't usually attend to the fact that it's not just that content, it's also us, we're also knowing that we're here, aware of the content. And so self-inquiry is like, well, we understand what we talk about when we see or hear or taste or feel or touch or think, but what do we mean, what do we feel when we feel ourselves watching? Like, what is the watcher? What is the knowledge of the watcher? How do we know that we're here? How do we know that we're here apart from whatever it is we're experiencing? We somehow know it. Our knowledge of it is somehow immediate and distinct and intimate, and it's the most elementary knowledge we possibly have. And self-inquiry is trying to feel into that. Like, what is that? Where am I? What is this? Who am I? Meaning, what is this I feeling? This I-ness. Like, what exactly is it? Where exactly is it? What does it consist of? Can I feel into my own experience of it and try to grasp it with my attention? Can I attend to it? And as you try to do this, you're inevitably going to find that your mind comes to some feeling or some thought, and your job is to recognize when you come to that feeling or thought that I'm aware of this. I'm aware of this feeling or thought. And you cannot be what you are aware of. So in that same position, you're now again in another experience, and again the sense of you as the experiencer is separate from that. And again you hunt yourself as the experiencer, and again you're going to go to another thought, and on and on. You're going to keep pursuing. And the point to emphasize is you're experiencing somehow. This knowledge of, yes, I'm here, I am, right? It's so crystal clear because it's the light through which everything is seen. At the same time, when we actually look for what that light is, it seems to be consisting in an endless series of objects illuminated by the light. So chase the light, chase the light. So let's try it for 10 minutes together.
Which gives me peace as well as observing my peace and above it. And I feel that it makes me, all the organs make me feel it. That means this particular thing is coordinating or controlling kind of a feeling. And also with a, just like a breath, it's aligned with the breath, it's not aligned with the breath, it's going like that kind of a feeling.
Yeah, in a way that makes sense.
And it's coming from out, and then maybe with me, and then also it's kind of, I hear it also, I feel it also, and I breathe it also. So everything together only I feel that silence, right? So it gives me the feeling of the silence by controlling every part of my thing. I feel.
So the next step is, right, so everything you mentioned, right, every feeling, including the overall feeling of power, the in-breath and the out-breath, right?
And also sometimes I felt very emotional, like just like a weeping kind of feeling, and everything is controlled. I see that just like a control which comes with the breath and also go out and things like that. Also it controls everything, and it's able to be with me or watch it or something like that.
Well,
that feeling.
So what I want to point out is, these feelings that it controls, it's causing these things, right, are themselves thoughts.
Yeah, thoughts, okay.
I mean, not that they're wrong, because I think they're on the right path, but to notice, right, all this series of emotion and the sense of power, the sense of something deep that's controlling things, is all being observed. It's all observed.
Yeah, everything is observed.
It's all observed, and so remember, you're looking for the observer. So again, this is a problem with language, right? And, I fall into this trap as much as anybody because it's very hard to talk in other ways, right? Because it seems like when you do self-inquiry, we're looking for, like you said, that I.
Yeah, right.
That I. Really, that I suggests that I is some entity out there. Remember, what we're looking for is you, the looker, the one who is looking. Where is the one who is looking? The one who is looking in self-inquiry. The one who is inquiring. The inquirer. Where is the inquirer?
Yeah, the looker is sometimes outside, sometimes comes inside like that.
No. Comes outside and comes inside
also
are
observed.
themselves observed.
Yes.
Do you see
It's
that?
not the looker.
Yeah.
You see that? You see that?
Yeah.
But those are feelings. The feeling, it is outside, it is inside.
It's not
Those are
feeling alone. It's a collective control kind of a feeling.
Is that the mind which is playing the game?
Yeah, it is, because see, when you say collective control, you know,
Because
It's-
it's
it doesn't make it not a feeling. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
your feeling that I'm outside or I'm inside are both things that you are experiencing. Do you see that? It comes to you. It comes to you as a feeling that I'm outside or I'm inside, for example.
No, but I feel it is exist along with my thoughts.
But it is also itself a thought that way. You see,
Yeah.
inside and outside are thoughts themselves. You see that?
Yeah.
Like a feeling of being inside or a feeling of being outside are themselves thoughts.
Yeah, that's a thought. That's
So they
okay.
themselves are on the screen of the mind.
Yeah.
So you're looking for the one who's noticing that, the one who's noticing that sometimes it feels inside, sometimes it feels outside. Well, who is noticing that?
Yeah.
You
But
see that?
what I mean is the noticing at a distance, like it can penetrate through and control and make me feel that silence. That's what I meant.
Well, but how do you know? See, again, even issues of control, right? The idea that it controls. Okay? And the idea that it controls.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a problem with Zoom?
Yeah. Hang on.
So, Akilesh, one question. to
Huh?
you.
Sure.
I know that very clearly that the I is different from everything else. I'm an observer. Okay.
Yes.
But the very much existence of that I is associated with my body. The moment, the physical level, it doesn't come into existence, the I disappears. And the observer is there, maybe there, but I am not aware of that observer, when the body, my physical level
Well,
doesn't exist.
when the waking state is not there, you might say.
Yeah, like the example is when I'm asleep,
Yeah, when you're in
Deep
deep
sleep.
sleep.
when I'm in deep sleep,
That's right.
the observer mind, I'm not aware even of the observer.
Sure.
So now come to the question what happens to the observer when the physical thing completely gone? Like if you are dead, and that can be very, yeah. So what happened? I know, the follow-up question is, I know that this is my body, so I know that I'm different from the body.
Yeah.
But when I say Shriramji is my friend,
Yeah.
but to whom? Shriramji is to friend of my eye, observer, or to my body?
Well, it's clearly a thought, right? Sriramji is my friend is a thought, right? And so it's the idea of friendship is itself within that thought network.
Yeah.
So what you're looking for when you ask, yeah, but what happens when this body dissolves?
Yeah.
The only real answer is you have to find, first of all, to whom that thought occurs. And you may be right that thought does not seem to occur in deep sleep. That may be true. But nevertheless, finding what that thought is, even in the waking state, the waking I, is interestingly enough the key to solving the other mysteries as well. Because it turns out the mysteries of what happens after death are all founded on the illusion that's created in the waking state. So right now you only have access to the waking state. So it's this state we're trying to understand. What is happening right now? Right now, what is my experience? Well, I seem to be here. What is this I that seems to be here? We don't need to think about what happens in deep sleep too much, actually. What we need to find out is what's happening right now.
No, I technically understand, what you said, but to really, even to satisfy, even the observer mode, okay? When I'm sleep, even not reaching to the point where my body got dissolved, even in the deep sleep, what happens to the observer?
Well, yeah. What I'm trying to say is, there's a speculative, philosophical,
Yeah.
traditional invited answer to that question. But what I'm really suggesting is that's not the relevant question if you want the truth, basically. So, in other words, put it this way: you're trying to intellectually go to the truth,
Yeah.
but you can't. What you need to know is if you want to know what happens in deep sleep or where the observer goes when the waking state is deactivated, there's only one way to find out,
In the
which
waking
is
state.
which is sorry
Through the waking
through
state.
the waking state. find out what this state is right now, and then that state will become clear.
No, that is very clear to me.
So I think, Akilesh, I had the same question in a different way yesterday, if you recall. So my question was very similar to yours, is that everything that I have without my waking state seems to be of no value.
Yeah.
Even if I mean, at least in my experience, it seems like, oh, if I'm slept, I'm dead. What is the difference between an enlightened person and me? In deep sleep, we are both equal, and in death, we are both equal.
Yeah.
So is it only in the waking state that we are unequal? And I was trying to, but then, as Akilesh pointed out, that's a philosophical discussion, and it's a limitation of the mind to be able to. So we have to put this work in the waking state to get to that. That's kind of my
exactly
what I took from him
I
yesterday.
mean, I understand that, like, I need to put that exercise while
That's
away,
yeah.
but I'm very dissatisfied that I have to do this in the waking state only. Why we can't, like, I reach a state where like, in the way, I mean, I'm very dissatisfied that I have to do this inquiry only in the waking state. Why can't I get the ability to, like, become real observer? Why can't, like, I'm able to observe my deep sleep state also, so that is the state where I can find the truth. That is the only state.
Well, I mean, I mean, look, there's a lot of answers to that. There's a lot of answers to this question, right? So, you know, look, I mean, again, the traditional answer is what you really are is aware of the deep sleep state. It's just the deep sleep state doesn't have the usual characteristics that define the waking state. What it means to be aware of the deep sleep state is deep sleep. That's what it is. You're aware of that.
Yeah.
It's just that minus the characteristic of separation between subject and object. So the true you is, in fact, aware of deep sleep, if anything is. And furthermore, Ramana would say that the deep sleep state is right now. It's actually current. Because deep sleep, the samadhi of deep sleep, is actually nothing but the self. It's that when you regard it as a separate state, it becomes a puzzle. But if it's actually right this second, it's accessible now. The idea is a piece of deep sleep. That same question of what deep sleep is, the same access to deep sleep, is actually right this second. But why doesn't it seem like that? Well, because of the illusion that's going on. So, you know, the concern about the deep sleep state and what it really is will be satisfied if you direct yourself to understanding the waking state properly. Because the waking state turns out to incorporate, to be a function. Deep sleep is actually, you could argue, is the self. And there's nothing but deep sleep.
But maybe, like, I have not reached that state of, like, finalness of thinking. But yeah, I think, no, I mean, I'm not able to separate that. My thought itself is like in a thought of not able to differentiate between these two as an observer. Yeah.
The waking state, what plays role is the body and the eyes and all that. The waking state, what you're seeing,
Sure.
eyes, right? It takes
and the brain. Don't forget the physical brain.
Sure.
physical.
Most important.
And we get the image of all that in the brain. The eye sees. Eye is an object. It is seeing. We talked about
Sure.
it yesterday, right? And we have the images of that in the brain stored. Then what happens in the dream state? Whatever you have stored in the brain works. The mind is still active.
Sure.
In the dream state. Okay, so in the mind, all these thoughts have accumulated and it forms an image, and you see all that in your dream. But that's not true. It's a dream.
Sure.
Right? Deep sleep, there is no mind,
Right.
no brain. Nothing is working.
Brain is activity.
It's there, but it's not active.
It is still active.
It is.
Yeah,
It is
different
like
type
a
of
dead.
activity.
It's active, but
Well, from the waking
Okay, got that.
it's from the waking standpoint that we
Yeah.
consider people in deep sleep to
so
have their
that's
brains
what
active.
deep sleep is.
But-
Brain is not.
Look, yeah,
Not
this
like
is
the
this is
waking
essentially the standard
The mind is-
Advaita
yeah,
explanation.
yeah.
You know, all I'm pointing out is that if you want the actual truth, right,
Yeah.
it's only accessible through
Yeah.
this process,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Everything else is speculation, basically.
Yes.
You know.
It is accessible.
So-
I missed that. It is accessible through what?
Through the waking
Waking
analysis, inquiry of the waking state,
Good.
right? Right now, what is actually happening? Because the reality is, we don't even know. I mean, these are all well-known, basic philosophical puzzles, right? We don't even really know, what happened 5 minutes ago, right? We don't understand time. Time is a complete mystery. Free will is a mystery. Every puzzle, there's really nothing which we know at any fundamental level, right? The only thing which we really have some access to is I. That's the key to the whole puzzle. If we can really, 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 really look at that and hunt it and find it.
I have a very, 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 very brief question.
Sure. Very, 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 very brief.
Because while talking about the practice about inquiry in the waking state, there are some practices where we use sleep, like there is lucid dreaming kind of, and also in the Yoga Sutras also.
Sure.
Patanjali mentions about inquiry in swapna and nidra,
Really?
both dreams and sleep. So I was wondering, there are practices that we can fine tune the mind so that it is still observing what is going on.
Yeah, sure, we could say that. I think that's probably true. That if you're inquiring all through the daytime, you might find yourself seeming to inquire during dream, possibly as well. That may be possible.
No, but I think the moment the mind comes into play, the observer is the observer itself has to. Observer is the observing the mind too. Whether you're in whatever state. So again, maybe people like Maharshi, Bhagavan might we have realized able to see that, but we are all not at that state. Not able to fine tune that inquiry while awaking to realize the observer state in the deep sleep as well.
Okay, let's not get confused here. Don't expect that you're going to observe the deep sleep state as if it were as if you were awake. That's not the meaning of realization. Realization doesn't mean that you're now able to be awake during deep sleep. The definition of deep sleep is it's without the waking eye. So you don't get to be awake during deep sleep. Awake during deep sleep would be a contradiction in terms. Then it would be another waking state. The self, the true self, observes deep sleep, but its kind of observation is not the same kind of observation as we observe in the waking state. When we say we observe in the waking state, what we mean by that is subject-object observation, meaning there's that distinction between experiencer and experienced. That is the characteristic of the waking state. So, it's true. To call it the observer with a capital O is stretching the meaning of the term because it's not the usual kind of observation. It's a very different, extremely different kind of observation, which almost might be more like what seems to us as non-observation, but it is observation. It's just extremely radically different. And that same radical observation, which is not the same as our usual observation, is present right now. It's just that it's observing, in that sense, the waking eye as the first thought.
No, I completely understand theoretically, but I have not experienced it.
But the only way to get the experience is through the
Even
process.
that observation that you say, the very different kind of observation that happens in deep sleep or in death, can only be brought into experience by the waking eye after the fact, because it says, in sleep I knew I slept, and I knew I'm born, right? Something.
That awareness is there.
So without the waking eye, the universe is not self-aware then, or nothing is self-aware.
Again, that's a question that comes into concepts, and again, the concepts are themselves born from illusion. So again, because the truth is, right? They would say, they would say in the scriptures, and Maharishi, I'm sure, says somewhere, right? The three states that are given are not real. There's no three states actually.
They itself gone.
Because they're also part of the dream. They're part of the dream that is created by the waking eye illusion that we have supposedly three states. So when you have these three states, then you have these difficult problems about how are they really different from each other, what's really happening in them, and all that. Let's tackle another verse or two. Why not? For fun. So we were at
9 yesterday.
10. Perfect. 10 says, the body is like an earthen pot, inert. Because it has no consciousness of I, and because daily, now we're talking about sleep, and because daily in bodiless sleep we touch our real nature, the body is not I. And who is this I? Where is this I? In the heart cave of those that question thus, there shineth forth as I himself, Lord Shiva of Arunachala. So this is speaking to exactly what we've just been talking about, right? So clearly you cannot be the body and because you do exist in some sense in deep sleep, he's saying, he's giving provisional reality to this. You cannot just be the body. You cannot just be the waking eye. You must be something more than that. And so when you start looking into how that eye manifests in the waking state, then you will discover you yourself shine forth as Shiva. In 11 he says, who is born? It is only he who asks, whence am I born, that is truly born in Brahman, the prime source. He indeed is born eternally. He is the Lord of saints. He is the ever new. So it's funny, right? Because I think I may have mentioned a day or two before, right? In the famous Mandukya Karaka of the which is written by Gaudapada. His great doctrine is ajata, which is unborn. Unborn. Nothing is born. Nothing comes into existence. Nothing comes into existence. Not quite the same thing as saying there is nothing. It's not quite the same thing as saying nothing comes into existence. So, the same thing can be put, this is all speaking in very poetic language of this extremely sublime, subtle reality, right, which we can only see through the intensity of practice, and then grace, of course, actually. But to say things are unborn is actually, ironically, very similar to saying that they are born eternally. They're born eternally. Born eternally. So, we have to inquire into, who it is that's supposedly born for this step to unravel itself. It says, cast off the notion, this vile flesh am I, and seek the ceaseless bliss of self. To seek the self while cherishing this perishing flesh is like trying to cross a stream by clinging to a crocodile.
Yeah.
So, though I do think we do want to keep basic physical and emotional mental health, we don't want to cherish these things to an excessive extent, because that's not going to help us with the spiritual
Like the
quest.
salt, Krishna, the salt, corrodes the vessel.
Right.
The worries corrodes the body.
Right, sure, absolutely. I mean, and worrying too much about the body is a distraction from seeking the self. What is action or devotion or union or knowledge? It is to inquire, whose is this action, or indifference, or separateness, or ignorance? Inquiring thus, the ego vanishes. To abide as a self, wherein these 8 have never been, this is true existence. So, because what happens is when you inquire, all these concepts arise, action, union, devotion, knowledge, right, and their opposites. And one recognizes these are all objects. All of them are objects. And so, who is observing them? Who's observing them? Who's observing them? Who's observing them? In that mode, you're like it's like you're like a missile going towards the horizon, eternally towards the horizon, always cutting apart everything else, eternally towards the horizon. So that movement towards an infinite horizon is the self, basically.
I'm observing a thought in my mind that we missed one word.
Oh, did I miss something? Tell me. Please.
13.
There's no verse 13 in this paper.
Oh, this is the way of charity.
Thank you. No, it's in my. I'm blaming the printout. Thank you.
See, this is what you are.
This is clearly.
This is what you are. Bliss. Absolute.
See, the beauty is, even when doing inquiry, you can come up with this. So the way of charity, penance, this is 13. The way of charity, penance, sacrifice, dharma, yoga, and bhakti. And the goal of heaven, reality, peace, truth, grace, silence, stability, deathless death, knowledge, renunciation, liberation, bliss.
Everything.
All of this is only ceasing to think that the body is the self.
That's a good
Amazing. Beautiful.
So that means all the jnana is relevant when you come to the observer. All the jnana we are accumulating is irrelevant for the observer.
Well, of course, that much is quite clear. That much is quite clear. But the real point is, right, that all these things which we think are so different, devotion and knowledge and all of these things, right, they're all really the simple same thing, which is non-identification with the individual person.
But it's a catch-22 situation, right? But without this knowledge, we don't even realize the observer.
Yes.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
No, of course. You have to take the knowledge provisionally and then follow the practice, and then at the end of that, it will be dropped from you. It will be taken from you, actually.
Like our
Taken from
shastras,
you.
Yeah. Learn and unlearn.
shastras
You know,
also.
But Ramana says at some point, he says, eventually that practice, which becomes so beloved to the practitioner because it's a source of peace, will be forcibly removed from them. Yeah. So that's how
what is implied here is it's saying that when I'm practicing any of these, when I'm in any of these, then I'm ceasing to think that my body is the self. Is that
I think what they're really saying is essentially all of these, ceasing to identify with the body as the self, essentially equals all of these amazing things that we are seeking.
So
like
it's
bhakti.
the other day when you said those transparencies.
Yes.
These are the same.
Yes.
Layers and layers and layers. Which are those?
Well, knowledge and devotion and all of these things are I don't think he doesn't mean quite the transparency. What he means are these high spiritual goals that are called by different names. People think they're different, but they're not really different. He just wants to say they're all the same thing. People think bhakti is so different from jnana. These are two different paths. These are different things. No. He's like, no, they're all the same. They're all the same. They're all driven by the single basic idea of disidentification from the individual self.
Yeah.
Basic point. Any questions so far? Let's do 10 more minutes of practice together. Let's just surrender. Why not? So I'm going to explain the surrender practice again because it's always helpful to re-explain. So surrender, I feel like, has two components. One component is the component of ignoring everything that's happening. When I say ignore, I do not mean that you have to force it out of your mind. I only mean that thoughts and experiences arise, and your job is don't take them to be truth. Continuously realize and re-realize that they are experiences, merely phenomena, like a play of light. So don't get caught up in them. Don't let your attention become like hypnotized by any particular experience. Keep bringing back your attention to yourself, bringing back your attention. That's what I mean by ignore. Just like if there were a TV in the corner of the room, it's playing some movie or whatever it is, and your intention is to ignore it. You don't have to turn the TV off. You don't have to change the channel. You don't have to pay attention to any particular detail of the movie. You just need enough attention to know that it's happening and don't pay attention to it. And you have to keep reminding yourself of this over and over again because the movie it's playing is very interesting. So it's your favorite movie. So, you're very tempted to keep looking at it and to become absorbed by it. And, you have to keep reminding yourself not to, essentially. So, and then the other aspect of it, which is really linked to the first aspect, is to relax your willpower. And really, in a way, I could just say relax, period. Accepting the practice itself, where you can use your willpower. In every other situation, you want to not use your willpower. Willpower is that burdensome, difficult sense of like, I have to do this. I have to focus on that. If I don't put my effort in, it won't happen. That's all willpower. So you want to relax that, and that's going to naturally follow from recognizing that something is just an experience and it's not real. Because it's only when we take something to be real that we then feel like I need to put my attention and focus and effort on it. If you don't take it to be real, you don't do that. Like in the desert, if you know that there's water and it's just a mirage, you're not going to go running towards it. So, similarly, if you realize and keep in mind and surrender that whatever it is you're experiencing is an illusion, then you will not put any effort towards it. This does not necessarily mean the body and the mind will not act. They will act because they are part of the illusion. So whatever is generating the movie will also make the body and the mind act as it wishes. And you were not in control of it before, and you won't be in control of it under this circumstance. But the difference is that when you do surrender, you're not burdening yourself with an illusion of control. You're able to relax, and by that relaxation, now you get to enjoy. You get to enjoy things happening without your effort, which is in fact the way they've always happened.
Blossoming.
Huh?
Blossoming.
Blossoming. Things just blossoming. Things happening, right? So you have a show that's being created just for you, without any effort on your part whatsoever. That's the goal. So
basically, chumair.
Chumair. It is chumair. Exactly. It is chumair. It is chumair. Except that again, the chuma part is the key part. Yeah. The chuma part. The chuma part. Just be, Ramana says, but just
be. He said something.
No, the just part is the
chuma, what did you
chuma
say?
ira, right?
Ira, yeah.
Chumair, yeah. That's what I said.
So just be, but just is the key point. So in
It's
surrender,
the
we're
Bhagavan
focusing on
says.
just.
Bhagavan says Chumai.
Yes, yes.
Chumai, he always says
Famous
Chumai.
words, famous words. Yeah, exactly. So let's try that. Right now, of course, there's not much that you have to expend your willpower on for the most part, but
Bhagavad Gita
same idea, right?
don't act.
Yeah. Well,
Is the Bhagavad Gita surrender the same? I think.
Yeah,
the Gita's, you know, the Gita does have ideas of surrender in it. The Gita does have ideas of
fruit
surrender
of
in it.
action.
But we should be a little bit careful. I mean, I like to differentiate
Practice, at least.
between ideas of surrender, and Gita also has ideas of karma yoga, which are a little bit different. Because in karma yoga, you are identifying as the doer. You're pretending to do, and you're putting your effort in towards your so-called duty, and then but you're trying to renounce the fruit of that action. And you're trying to tell yourself it's an attitude that though I appear to be doing something, it's actually God's work. But in surrender, it's not quite the same thing. You're not acknowledging that there's any such thing as duty in surrender. In surrender, you say, none of this has anything to do with me. Let whatever happen, happen. Duty or non-duty, pleasure or not pleasure, pain or not pain, I don't care. None of it has anything to do with me. I'm completely unaffected by any of this. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm affected, nor do I have any control over any of this. I'm neither the enjoyer, nor the sufferer, nor the doer of any of these things. So that's what surrender takes, a more extreme position, which is also in the Gita, but it's more well known for karma yoga, basically, I would say.
It's like a coexisting and not being affected.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
coexisting
That's
and
right.
not being affected.
That's exactly
For example,
right.
if you are
Yes.
standing in front of a flower, if you are, unless otherwise you are affected, you know, the flower is blossoming and you are also growing.
Yes.
So those both are independent, but your growth is not dependent on how the flower blossoms.
Right.
Even though you can see that the flower is
Yes.
like blossoming,
Yes.
your growth is independent of that. So they both are happening independently, but I mean in a raw example.
Right. Except in this case, there's no. I mean, in surrender, we are essentially trying to mimic what the self is,
Yeah.
and the self doesn't grow. You know, the self doesn't change. Right. The self, all the changes are happening in the objects.
Objects, yeah.
The self is not changing at all. Self is just there, continuously there, unaffected, unperturbed, complete, whole, blissful. So, you know, we're just trying to disengage from the false idea that we are among the objects. We're not among the objects. Just like believing that, oh, I'm really on the movie screen, there's a tsunami really headed my way, I have to run, otherwise I die, right? These are all thoughts on the movie. It doesn't matter how high the tidal wave is, it will never actually reach you in your seat.
Oh, you'll become that.
Observer.
Yeah, you avoid, well, you don't really, you become that by avoiding all the thoughts that are telling you otherwise. That's what it is, right? It's only thoughts that are telling you that you're in the thing. So you have to recognize these thoughts are trying to trap you into a false story.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, it's so beautiful, it's so radical,
Yeah.
right? It's so rebellious, actually, really, right? It's counter to everything. It says, you don't have to do anything. You're free. You're free from all obligation. That's what surrender's saying. It's scary, of course. That's the problem. People can't do it. So let's try for 10 minutes together.
Healing myself from the peaceful thought that I experienced. I said, okay, this thought, all or nothing for
Right.
me.
Yes.
And I kept my eyes really wide open. No object affected me. And I said, okay, nothing happened. Then I thought the peace I experienced, that's also not me. And I've gone to that level. I am able to see that I am kind of completely detached on all these things. That's it. So
Great.
it helps me like experience that thought, like the other concept, you know, observer, focusing on the observer.
Yeah, actually, no, that's very true. So, you know, it's interesting, right? I'll say two things really quick. So one is, very good, that's really great, you know, so you get the peaceful feeling, you realize this too is an experience.
Yeah.
And keep your attention away from it.
Oh.
And then, actually, ironically, that is the best way to sustain such experiences, because the peace will recur again. And again, you have to, recognize it's an experience.
Yeah.
And again, make sure your attention is, and again and again and again. And as if you're looking at a still pond, and you keep on reminding yourself, I'm looking at this pond. I'm looking at this pond. You know, you don't allow yourself to just, like, lose yourself in the beautiful pond, basically. But the other thing I want to say, which is, I don't know if you meant to say this, but it's true, right? Again, this is part of the beauty of how inquiry and surrender interact, right? In both cases, you're looking for I, really. But You're going about it in slightly different ways. One way of thinking about it, so what happens in inquiry is, you usually will eventually hit a wall, you'll come to silence, and then where do you go from there? Because it'll seem like it's a kind of wall. But one way of thinking about where I is in those moments of silence in inquiry is that it's in the direction away from the object.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in surrender, in surrender you're moving away from the experienced object. And if that experienced object is silence, you move away from that, right? So if you want to go to inquiry where I am, you're away from whatever it is your experience is.
Then another thing I noticed, even if I cry, I thought, I'm not crying, my eyes are shedding tears, it's nothing to do with me.
Yeah, true.
That kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel any pain at all. Because, and I see that it's tearing up, that's it.
Exactly. So progressive disidentification from the activities of the body and the mind.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's funny, right? Inquiry and surrender, right, when carried out as is the ideal, at least the attempt should be made at all waking moments, continuously, right? As the forefront of your attention, as the first priority, or maybe preferably the only priority. It's because what we're doing is we are, again, it's a very, very extremely compelling illusion that hides what is, in fact, hidden in plain sight. The self is so incredibly obvious that we cannot see it. That's the thing. It's right here. We are it, literally, experiencing it continuously. But because of a kind of like 3D network of thought, the network of thought, it creates like an illusory depth, and it's all referencing each other. The thoughts are all referencing each other. It's like, it's like everyone's talking about Bob. No one's ever seen Bob, but everyone references Bob. Well, Susie told me about Bob, and Susie says, well, Tom told me about Bob, and then someone else says, so it's like the thoughts keep referencing I, all the way through. And so they can trace the network back, and it goes on infinitely. This is why they say ignorance is anadi, beginningless, because the thoughts are beginningless. But the thoughts of themselves, though they may be beginningless, it's like a picture of a beginningless thing. It's beginningless on a surface. If you can recognize through the practice of surrender inquiry that all of these things are going on the surface, even if the picture is of a sea that goes on forever, or the picture is of some other kind of infinity, it's still just a picture. And then we recognize that, and that's how the exit is, right? Because it's veiling something that's right here.
Yeah, for me, similar, I can put it in a different way. The relative coefficients doesn't exist when I'm surrendering, but in the play very much they exist. For example, the time, direction, quantity, all these things becomes irrelevant. Even at the object level, they're all existing.
Yeah, you can think of it that way. I mean, the reality is, right, the idea that time, quantity, etc., exist at the object level is itself a thought at the object level.
No, even when you the surrender process, when you're observing, it's like a moving things happening, correct? Like all the show.
But what I'm saying is that idea there's a moving set of images happening is itself a thought. Exactly. You see? So it gets meta. It's very, very subtle. It gets subtler and subtler, commenting on itself, commenting about itself.
But in the main plane, those all doesn't matter because there is no. When I'm observing, like in the surrender mode also, even though the play is happening, for me, even the time, quantity, all it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Exactly. It doesn't matter. Though my only point in saying this is just that we ultimately want to, through surrender and inquiry, get out of the notion of ideas generally. Right? Ideas are constraining us. So we don't want ultimately even the idea. The self is pure consciousness. The self is eternal. The self is deathless. This, that. We say these things. And they're true in a way. But in other ways, they're constraints. Because the self is not any of these things. These are all things. Deathless, eternal, complete, blissful. These are things. They're ideas. The self is not actually an idea at all. It has no qualities. It has no character. it's beyond all those things. Even saying it's beyond all those things, even that we cannot say. That's a character. So, yeah, we're characterizing it as beyond. So, that's the dilemma of language. But, through the practice, we want to recognize whatever it is we say, whatever it is we think about anything whatsoever, and it's, especially about God or the self, which are all just, ephemera. They're not the thing. We want to experientially move towards the thing, whatever, us.
Curious.
It's not really out there, it's us.
Going back to what you said about the strategy of moving away from the object of focus. So does it mean, for example, that if right now I'm experiencing silence, then I should stir it up so that I go against it?
Yeah, I mean, you can argue it's maybe a very, very subtle stirring up, because all it is just a recognition that this is happening, that it is happening, that it's a phenomenon. So if by stirring up you mean something that prevents you from getting lost in it, then yes.
But the image that came to my mind was like going from one local minima to another local minima. Like you're in a comfort bubble.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's true. Absolutely correct. Because people say, oh yeah, why should I disrupt it when I'm silent and peaceful?
Yes.
But you should. Because we're not going to be satisfied with a temporary peace. That's why. Yeah.
When you go into that Layam state, if you ask who has this peace, then the peace goes away. Then you're back into you lose a peace to then get back.
Yes. But then the peace will repeat itself. You see, so the longer term, the thing is, you may lose it for a second, but actually it's the best strategy to remain in the long term. To question who is having this peace, who's having this peace, who's having this peace. Ironically, in the long term, you'll get much more peace than if you just simply sit with it.
Longer duration all the time like that.
If you lose yourself in the peace, if you let go of effort, then what will happen is your attachments will come and drag you out of the silence. Before you know it, you'll be vulnerable.
Yes.
If you lose effort, you lose your your guardedness against attachments coming and attacking you and making me lose the silence, basically. So, ironically, by questioning it, you protect it. That's how it works.
So one day we'll practice this, one day we'll practice that. Where we make progress, we'll stick to that.
Keep
24/7.
That's right.
24/7.
24/7, one day this, and the next day that.
Actually, yeah.
Suppose sometimes you are getting more glimpses with the surrender, go with it.
Yeah. You'll gravitate to what you gravitate towards. Some people feel certain stages in their life they're more oriented towards
and
surrender.
And you're stuck there, then you go with it.
As long as you feel you're enjoying it, go with it. And if you feel like a switch.
Yes.
This is better than that.
Yes.
That is better than this. That is your judgment.
True.
So in the beginning it's better just
or mix and match.
No, actually, you will reach a point where these two both are.
Nothing, even that also you're going to drop.
Yes.
The resistance.
Everything has to be dropped.
Yeah, I mean,
Do it without.
Well, yes and no. So, like I said, right, if there is serious resistance, unfortunately, or fortunately, the reality is you probably will not be able to sustainably just do it. Just do it, unfortunately, is a problem. I wish I could tell you that, because it's so nice to just say just do it. But the reality is, if you are encountering serious resistance to the practice, you have no choice but to examine the resistance carefully and see what message it contains for you, and see if you can assuage its concerns. Because it's like as if there's a warring party inside of you, and you can't just stamp it out, unfortunately. It's not going to help. You have to listen to it carefully and see if you can address its concerns.
But Akilesh, you are surrendering for the God to break that. When you say surrender, the surrender helps you break that obstacle.
If you can. I mean, if you can surrender will help you break it. But there may be times when people will say, I don't feel like surrendering. And that'll happen for quite a while. Then what do? Then you have to do what you can, which is you have to step down the ladder. Surrender and inquiry are at the top of the ladder of difficulty. You have to step in the ladder to that point where you can do something. Some kind of change can be enacted, right? So we're trying to keep the spiritual practice going somehow. And whatever stage we're at, and it can change from moment to moment, or day to day, or month to month. We have to meet ourselves where we are, realistically. Because it's nice to think we could just power through by force of will. That's not how it works mostly for most people. You have to address those moments of resistance when the way that they are amenable to.
So I think the path of yoga, pranayama, the chanting, everything
can be helpful.
Can be very helpful in strengthening and even getting rid of the rebellious parts of you, right?
Yes. Not only that, sometimes you go down the tube suddenly.
Yes.
These practices help you when you go down the tube suddenly due to event happening.
And they're preparatory.
And then you just do that and then bring it back.
Yes, absolutely, exactly. They absolutely can.
I feel that way.
Yes, because for the end of the day, it's very hard to sit for meditation.
Of course.
Everyone should watch the Shriram.
Then I have to do this chanting.
Put a podcast on here,
breathing.
Because
beginning of the day is fine.
But at the end of the day, it's much harder. No, but these are good patterns to observe. I think a lot of people feel that way. Morning, for example, starting, if you can, for example, getting up in the morning, 5 minutes doing self-inquiry or surrender in a sitting, dedicated way, it's a very nice way. And then you set the intention that I would like to keep doing this, and try to stay awake and aware. And you're right, probably gets harder at the end of the day. Maybe at the end of the day, you cannot do it. Maybe at the end of the day, you do something else. Maybe you just, read a talk by Ramana, or you chant something. Whatever you can do, you do. And I wanted to say, by the way, we were talking about discipline the other day, and I was sort of saying I don't love the idea of discipline, but I will say, right, what I meant was, I don't love the idea of discipline that is opposed against your own will. But if you view discipline as something which I'm trying to attain the spiritual, I really do want it, and how can I effectively prepare myself for that, and you really are on board, then of course discipline is totally fine. Yeah. So the issue is whether or not you are squelching your own authentic emotions. Squelching your own authentic emotions is a problem. You will not be able to win the game that way.
I think Abhyasa is the tool to streamline your true emotions.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
It's just a tool.
Sure. As long as you yourself are authentically on board, and you're not, you don't want to be in the position of, the parent and the rebellious child. And the parent is just smacking the child, trying to control it. That position is a problem.
Actually, Patanjali says the same thing. He uses the word Anushasanam. Shasanam is discipline. Anushasanam is self-inspired discipline.
Yeah.
So going downstream rather than trying to fight against.
Yes, exactly. So that's the main thing I wanted to say about that. So with that, let's conclude for this evening, and we'll see everyone again tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning.
7 a.m.
Pacific Standard Time. And tomorrow evening, there's no session. Just letting you know. Okay.